Located at the northernmost tip of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba is a few kilometers wide, bordered by 4 countries: Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Israel. Greatly prized as Jordan's window to the sea, Aqaba brings a refreshing release from the rose-colored mountains. Its coral reefs are the most pristine on the Red Sea, and Jordanians hope to preserve them through careful planning. East of Aqaba, the desert offers a fantastic landscape of ochre and gold, reminiscent of Lawrence of Arabia, who wrote wonderful descriptions of this open-air cathedral. Jordan's only coastline stretches 27 kilometers from the city of Aqaba south to the border with Saudi Arabia. Situated between the desert and the sea, Aqaba, a dynamic, modern-looking yet historical city, is the heart of Jordan as its only access to the sea. Archaeologists have dug up traces of human civilization dating back 5,500 years, and various monuments illustrate that rich past. Nowadays, although Jordan's economic well-being is dependent upon port activity, As-Sizzah is trying to maintain the balance between economic development and environmental protection. To achieve this goal, the Aqaba Marine Park was established in 1997, and in the years since its creation, new environmental regulations have been enacted. An oasis of calm. The Gulf of Aqaba sometimes gives the impression of being a haven for ships from all over the world. The Aqaba Marine Park seeks to safeguard and preserve the near-shore environment and maintain the health, resilience, and integrity of the marine environment. And the Aqaba Marine Park Visitors Center will help communicate this concept to the public. Fishermen continue to work in their old-fashioned way. However, with the establishment of the Aqaba Marine Park and the laws that prevent fishing within its boundaries, fishermen continue in their age-old techniques along the remaining coastline. At the foot of huge steel buildings, men in their fragile boats, often simple polystyrene rafts, untiringly lay their pots and nets. Jordanian fishermen live in close connection with the sea. The rich waters of the Gulf provide them with their livelihood, and they carry on an ancient activity made up of hopes and uncertainty concerning the future. How long will the riches of the Gulf of Aqaba enable the men to support their families? This intense industrial and fishing activity worries the Jordanian authorities, concerned about the quality of their marine environment. Most of the riches of this extremely deep Gulf are limited to a narrow coastal strip, which represents a thin thread of life, both fragile and superb. Faced with a number of different uses and the importance of that area for future generations, the Jordanian authorities are determined to protect their coral reef. In 1998, they decided to create a huge reserve of biodiversity, the Aqaba Marine Park. The Aqaba Marine Park stretches along 7 kilometers over a quarter of the coastline. The colorful reef appears just below the surface of the sea, a short distance from the beaches where Jordanians like to bathe. With its branch-like groups, a few centimeters long, spherical shapes with sinuous circumvolutions, or stalks several meters high, the shapes are as varied as the colors. This fire coral, dangerous to humans, is a living haven for thousands of fish, such as these damselfish, known as abudef-duff. Goldfish, grouper, and yellowtail surgeonfish are frequently found in the pristine waters of Aqaba. Dolphins can find shelter, food, and safety within the protected area of the marine park. The Jordanian scientists, biologists, biochemists, oceanographers monitored the health of the reef constantly. They dived regularly to assess the vitality and diversity of the reef. Along a graduated tape, they noted down centimetre after centimetre if the coral was dead or alive and which species it belonged to. They repeated this procedure hundreds of times, collecting thousands of data each time they dived. The collection of these data and the analysis of the results allowed a diagnosis on the health of the whole reef. But it's a huge task. 158 species of corals and 268 different species of fish live in the waters of the park, along with thousands of other marine organisms. Patience, discretion, and a good knowledge of the habitat were required of the biologists, whose aim was to photograph the animal and vegetal species living in the marine park. Like these tiny fish, camouflaged by the branches of this huge Gorgonia coral. A specific fauna corresponds to each submarine habitat. On the sandy bottom, there are mimetic, flat-headed fish, whose crocodile-like head shows a big mouth with a protruding lower jaw. Blue-spotted stingrays that skim the bottom for food. A harmless frogfish blends well into its natural surroundings, only to be suddenly discovered by an inquisitive diver. Sometimes the sandy bottom is covered with real submarine meadows. This aquatic plant habitat shelters a specific fauna, like this non-poisonous grey moray eel that gracefully surveys the area. The most incredible animals living in this habitat may be the garden eels, which live in groups, standing upright facing the stream, their bodies forming big question marks. They feed on the plankton that float in the streams. The tip of their tails constantly touching the holes where they quickly slide into shelter in case of danger, as happens when divers come too close. How can anyone possibly get close enough to photograph them? Even the less intrusive recycling diving gear was not enough. The team decided to fix the camera, equipped with a remote control, on the bottom. Leave it there and wait until the garden eels got used to seeing the camera. The shot could then be taken without disturbing the eels, whose wariness was finally overcome by patience and cunning. But even if the aquatic plant habitat and the sandy bottom hold many surprises, submarine life displays its full luxuriance in the coral reef. The corals are so varied in color and shape that even specialists sometimes have difficulty identifying the myriad of coral species that flourish in the Gulf of Aqaba. Within their branches, corals shelter many animals, including the gold-striped cardinal fish and the Christmas tree tube worms that protrude their brightly colored tentacles from the coral skeleton in fan-shaped spiral whorls, forming a prominent site underwater. A large number of animals benefit from the coral which shelters them, provides them with food and with a strong base on which they can settle. This clownfish lives in harmony with the sea anemone that offers protection, while the clownfish reciprocates with food. Nearby it lays thousands of eggs to be guarded until they hatch and find new sea anemones in which to live. Shell-free mollusks have a slug-like body with small spines embedded in the skin instead of a shell for support. They have naked gills, which are often carried on the back. Worm-like sea cucumbers have a soft and entirely flexible body with a sticky skin. They move with muscular contractions and tentacles that are also used to catch food. Pufferfish and soft coral, Dendronephthia. During the night, Dendronephthia, soft coral, are very active in catching the minuscule and abundant zooplankton for nourishment. The marine environment's version of a dentist, the cleaner shrimp, removes parasites from several fish species in a symbiotic relationship beneficial to both. They are usually found in pairs, and these partnerships generally last for the entire life of the shrimp. And last but not least, parrotfish bite into the skeletons of the corals so as to digest only the algae that develop inside. The erosive action of these fish accounts for the white coral sand on which the aquatic plant habitat grows. Divers from all over the world enjoy swimming on the seabed along these coral reefs where life is so rich. So as to restrict the number of divers and to offer new sites for amateurs, several shipwrecks have been laid under the waters of Aqaba Marine Park and hold a few surprises in store for visitors. A strange encounter in the world of silence. A tank enjoys peaceful retirement on its sand bed. Its once lethal guns now provide a strong base for the submarine life that has developed and forever target an enemy hidden somewhere in the sea. The heavy reinforced door of the piloting post seems to be guarded by a small damselfish who willingly attacks inquisitive divers. Only a few fish have taken up residence inside, coasting gracefully around the controls and making the atmosphere still more unreal. On the hull of this huge ship, colonies of coral develop, gradually taking up all the space, and they will eventually conceal the shipwreck completely. The development of these young coral reefs is very interesting for the biologists who can study the phenomena of colonization by fixed fauna and flora. Upon the cranes and masts of the ship, well exposed to the dominant stream, soft scarlet corals spread out to catch their food floating in the stream. The new Aqaba Marine Park has not been open long, and yet its luxuriance and the beauty of its waters already prove that its creation was not in vain. But if the measures taken to protect the submarine riches of Aqaba are to display the full measure of their interest, a lot still remains to be done. First of all, for the scientists who study the park closely so as to determine the future management of this protected area. Then, for the managers, so that they can promote and develop their results and make the public aware that this marine environment must be respected. And finally, for us, because marveling at the beauty of the gardens of Aqaba is only the first step. It is up to us now to take the next step towards a greater respect. Indeed, it is our duty to leave a well-preserved sea for future generations. The destruction of our environment is not inevitable. This could be the message of hope that the inhabitants of Aqaba Marine Park are conveying to us.